All right. It is an exciting day after like 3 or 4 reschedules. I am here with Matt Hill, founder and CEO of Start9, one of the most exciting, transformative companies in the Bitcoin and personal computing space, right? Leading the charge on a new category of computing that they call sovereign computing, right? Which can be akin to the personal computer revolution that we all remember and experienced back in the day. So, Matt, how are you today?
Doing good. Glad we finally were able to connect on this.
Yeah, stupid time zones. I appreciate it. Okay, so we're going to try and keep it short. I got a lightning round here, couple of questions. First off, can you just really shortly in your own words kind of sum up Start9 Labs?
Yeah. Our mission, our stated mission, is to eliminate the need for trusted third parties in the human computer relationship. Um, if you understand what role trusted third parties currently play in the human computer relationship, you'll understand the magnitude of that sentence. It basically means the disruption of quite possibly the most powerful corporate entities that have ever existed in the history of the world, the likes of Apple and Google and Microsoft and Amazon. Amazon obviously does lots of other things, as do the other companies. But in particular, I'm referring to their cloud computing model, software as a service, as it is often known in venture capital circles. Basically, the essential thesis of Silicon Valley for the past 25 to 30 years has been, how can you as a company position yourself as a third party, as a broker of information and communication channels between users and their computing needs? How well can you put yourself in the middle? And you were able to monetize that position via the collection of data, its analytics and monetization out the back door to advertisers. You were able to monetize that position through subscription models. Get them hooked, get them addicted, and then squeeze them. And that's great, and it worked. However, those companies over the last couple of decades have become increasingly powerful, and the hidden costs associated with that model to mankind have been largely unseen and growing in the background, and only now are starting to become very, very visible as the world takes a few turns and governments are exerting power and censorship capabilities, and companies are doing likewise, and privacy and surveillance considerations are rising to the fore. We are seeing more and more people take a look at this model, this cloud computing model that relies on trusted third-party custodians, and want a way out. Unfortunately, there isn't really a way out for most people in today's world. If you want out, you either move to the woods and abandon technology altogether, or you are a highly technical, sophisticated person with sufficient time, energy, or money to build for yourself the computing infrastructure necessary to conduct private communications online. Now, very, very few of us want to move to the woods and abandon technology, and very, very few of us have the means of sticking with technology, but opting out of the surveillance capitalist system. We offer the solution for the everyday person. We offer the everyday person the ability to continue with their computing life as they have before, but with the exception that there are no trusted third parties as part of the mix. So we believe that this is an extremely timely product and idea, that more and more this market is expanding, that in the near future, within a few years, we expect a sizable portion of the population to want to do what we call sovereign computing. This is computing without Google, computing without Apple. And in the future, we think it will be the only way humans compute. At least that's our goal.
Awesome. And I've heard you say it before, cloud computing is just someone else's computer. It's stored in the cloud, it's on someone else's computer.
Exactly.
Okay, so I want to jump around here. So a lot of people view your company or have the conception right off the bat that this is a hardware company. And a lot of investors kind of steer clear of hardware. They're scared of hardware. Um, I wanted to get your take. I know that there's plenty of other monetization strategies in here, and as well as the Lightning service provider and the other things that you may be getting into. But tell us, like, is this a hardware company, a software company? What's the mix?
Right now, we are pretty much, I don't know, 95% a software company. Um, Start9's hardware aspect is limited to basically putting together commodity hardware parts in the form of a Raspberry Pi and an SSD, putting it in a box and shipping it out the door. So very few people would struggle to call that a hardware company. We are a software company. We built EmbassyOS. This is our operating system, and our primary value add to the world is a new kind of operating system that enables a totally non-technical person to operate a personal server. This is the entire process of discovering, downloading, installing, configuring, and running in perpetuity self-hosted open source software services in order to fulfill your computing needs without the involvement of trusted third parties. That is what we have created. That is our product. Operating systems got to run on hardware. There's no such thing as an operating system that doesn't run on hardware. It's either on somebody else's computer or on your own computer. And so we express our value through hardware. People pay us money to ship them a hardware device with EmbassyOS pre-installed. But they don't have to. They could just buy EmbassyOS from us, and many people do. They buy the operating system from us, they download it, and then they install it on their own hardware. So, EmbassyOS is our product. Oftentimes, that product is included on a Raspberry Pi that we ship to somebody. Further, we are not service developers. Start9 is not building the apps, we call them services, that run on the operating system that runs on the hardware. So on the one end, you have the hardware, and on the other end, you have services, cool things that you can do with a computer. We sit right between those two things in the form of an operating system. And if that sounds boring to you, remind yourself that both Apple and Microsoft entered the world by providing primarily an operating system, right? Microsoft in the form of Windows. Apple was more comprehensive out of the gate. They provided their own operating system on their own hardware. So in that sense, we're slightly more like Microsoft. But what led the personal computing revolution, what took personal computers from the geek and hobbyist corners of dark rooms and entered the living rooms of everyday Joes and now the pockets of every person on Earth, was an operating system.
So, as far as that distinction of why somebody may think that you're a hardware company, it's because most of your revenues to date right now, right, as my understanding, is through the hardware sales. The software side is not a significant part of the revenue to date thus far.
That's correct.
Okay. So the Embassy versus the build your own. Now, a customer can choose to build their own. That is at no cost to that customer, right? If they do the work.
They have to buy the hardware from somebody.
Yeah.
No such thing as a free computer, right? You either buy it in pieces from the hardware store or you buy it fully assembled from us. So ultimately, the reason why somebody buys it from us as opposed to doing it themselves is convenience.
Mm-hmm. Because it's difficult for the average person. Speaking of the average person, okay, the job that you're disrupting, right? The traditional systems admin position, right? I'm not sure the average salary of that's probably in the low 100s, mid 100s, higher. Is what you're building mainly geared towards individuals, or do you see a significant enterprise value for companies and to use your products and services in the future?
Oh, we see enterprise value sort of in a progressive way, right? So we built this product for individuals. We designed it for individuals, all the way from the commodity hardware that it runs on, that we selected off the shelf, to the user experience and to the services that run on the device. They're all geared towards an individual who is looking to de-Google their life. And the reason we started with individuals as opposed to businesses is because we assess the ease of moving from one to the other, right? Oftentimes, when you design a product for a business, it's very difficult to adapt that product to then apply to individuals as well. It is a lot easier to build a product for individuals and then simply add power and features to it so that it is usable by businesses. So we started with what we think is the base case, the individual. But our system has been designed from the get-go with businesses in mind. And so, over the next 12 to 18 months, we will be releasing some feature sets and services that will make Embassy and EmbassyOS very valuable to businesses, beginning with the ones who are sort of disenfranchised, I'll say, right? So you have really, really small businesses of like 5 people who don't really have a lot of cloud computing needs. Or if they do have cloud computing needs, they're on all the free tiers. They're using the free tier of Dropbox, the free tier of Slack, right? They're not the business tier where it starts to get expensive. And then you have the like big corporate enterprises, and they're already self-hosting, right? They hire systems administrators and server racks, and they run their own services, and they don't have need for, at least at present, a sort of simpler prepackaged solution. Plus, that thing would need to be very, very featureful to accommodate their massive and nuanced needs. Where we fit perfectly is in that small business category, small to medium-sized business of anywhere between like maybe 20 and 200 people, right? Where they have significant cloud computing needs in the form of even say Slack. But at 100 people on Slack, you're paying thousands of dollars per month in subscription fees. Whereas our product, you can pay a couple $1,000s once and get free Slack on your own servers with no loss of convenience or security or privacy. In fact, you gain privacy because you're not inviting Slack into your business to view all your communications amongst your employees. And it's free for life. And it's free for life by design. Not because we decided that we're going to give it away for free, but because the nature of what we have built is proprietary. It is your property. Once you own these devices and you have downloaded the software, they are yours in the truest sense of that word. We're not part of the loop anymore. Nobody is.
Okay, so for the record, major enterprise expansion, right? Enterprise is the goal. And I want to make that perfectly clear for people who don't necessarily see the big picture with that. Mm-hmm. So the service place, right? The marketplace, how does it work? The future robustness, what's the plan? Are you developing these in-house? Are people submitting their own? And how does that become monetizable in the future?
Yeah, certainly. So, on the surface, we're not so different from like an Apple or Google when it comes to their App Store and Play Store, right? So they have the device, they have the operating system, and people from around the world build apps, and then they submit them to the marketplace, and then Apple and Google are acting as the distribution channel for all these cool software applications. We are doing a similar thing at first glance. Now, what we're doing under the hood is quite different, so I can get into some of the nuance there. But essentially, Start9 has what we call the Start9 marketplace. And you come in and you browse for open source, self-hosted software services that you want to run, anything from messaging to data to finance, you name it. And you download it from us. So you are actually in our territory. You're in our store, browsing a server that we are hosting remotely, downloading binaries. And this, there it is. Okay, so this is our, public-facing storefront. Obviously, you can't click install on one of these. So if you go into, let's say, Bitcoin there, there's not going to be an install button because you're accessing this on your computer. However, there is a get button, which will just take you to our store for you to buy an Embassy. But this is how it would look if you were browsing it on your Embassy as well, except instead of a get button, there would be an install button, and then it would install on your device, and you're done. So it's a very familiar, simple experience. And it is ours. So you are entering, like I said, our store, our gates, which gives us an enormous amount of positioning and power as we move forward. So we will be able to promote certain services. We could charge for services if we wanted to, say early access, right? We could do a early access program where anyone part of our premium membership gets, early access to cool new services before everybody else. Developers who post services on our marketplace could also monetize. They could charge for the distribution of their service. So in a way, we are the best friend of open source software developers because we are the distribution platform that they have been missing for decades, quite frankly, right? Like if you were an open source developer and you wrote something and somebody was like, that sounds cool, how do I run it? They would say, well, definitely, go to my GitHub, follow the command line instructions, get yourself a VPS on DigitalOcean, you'll be up and running in 2 weeks' time, no problem. And it's like nobody was ever going to do that, which is why open source has not eaten the world as prophesized, is because it's just been really hard to distribute and run. So that's the gap that we're filling. The marketplace is the distribution platform. However, I will add that we are intent, Start9 is intent on not becoming an essential, trusted third party in the future of computing. If we are, then we haven't really innovated in the way that we intend to. Our goal in the future is to make sure that as we build convenient, wonderful, walled garden things like our marketplace, that we simultaneously build easily accessible escape hatches. In the case of specifically here, what that means is that if somebody does not want to shop at our marketplace, it is easy for them to switch to somebody else's marketplace and shop there, right? Now, we know that most people, when you start talking about average Joes and Janes, tend to follow defaults. It will be rare for people to come in and switch marketplaces. They would need to have a very good reason to do that. So we think the escape hatch is important. We also don't think many people will click the escape hatch because we intend to do our job and provide a wonderful experience where they don't want to go shop anywhere else. What you were just showing there is our developer SDK. So we have a very comprehensive quality set of documentation available on our website for anyone in the world who wants to package their software application for our marketplace, or maybe they want to package somebody else's software application for our marketplace, right? The nature of open source software is that pretty much anyone could go grab, Bitcoin off the shelf, throw it into a neat little wrapper, and submit it to our store and for distribution. And it's a endeavor. Packaging a service for EmbassyOS is not a 2-hour process. It's also not a 2-week process. It is a reasonable effort for a reasonably skilled developer. And we already have many, in fact, upward of a dozen open source developers in the world who are packaging services for EmbassyOS at no pay, as in we're not hiring these people. They just want distribution on our platform. So we're very confident that the service marketplace will expand to first, dozens and then hundreds and then eventually thousands of service offerings.
So then are you personally seeding this, or is it just an organic growth on its own? I actually did a call with the founder the other day. He's building a really cool coin join, and that's first on his list. Is I'm going to get it submitted to Start9.
Nice.
Where we're going to see what kind of usage and traction. I mean, what better way than to appeal to these hobbyists and the people who are going to really support it? But do you have any in-house app development? Are you taking like requests from things that people want to see built? Like how involved are you in actually making this robust in the future?
Yeah, I mean, we'll call ourselves a helping hand. Shepherds, okay? Like we will be there for people who need help. We will maybe even encourage people to do things. You know what? If there's something that everyone wants, if all of our customers are clamoring for some service and we don't have the time to do it or whatever, we'll throw bounties out there. Maybe we'll pay open source developers, say, hey, we'll throw a bounty on it. Whoever gets this package up first gets a few sats and done. But we don't think we're going to need to do that. That's not what we're observing right now. We seeded the marketplace. Every single service that is currently on the Start9 marketplace was packaged by the Start9 team. Now, that doesn't mean we wrote the service. Start9 did not make Bitcoin. Okay, we took Bitcoin off the shelf and packaged it for EmbassyOS. And I keep saying this. I keep saying packaged for EmbassyOS. I don't know if your audience will know what that means. It's not a trivial thing. Okay, what EmbassyOS is a very featureful API for open source services to take advantage of, such that they can provide for an optimal user experience. Okay, what this means is the following. Let's say somebody is running Bitcoin on their VPS or their laptop, and they want to reconfigure it. They would like to change Bitcoin to have the TX index on, or they want to switch from a pruned node to an unpruned node, or they want to change which trusted nodes they can connect to. There are literally, I think, 100 or more configuration options for Bitcoin. And so if you're an individual running Bitcoin and you want to change any of these options, you are getting into your terminal, jumping on the command line, SSHing, creating SSH keys and SSHing into your computer and Bitcoin node, opening up a .configuration file using Vim or Nano, and manually editing lines of code in order to configure your Bitcoin node. This is how unusable Bitcoin is for the average person, is nobody is going to do that. What EmbassyOS does is it exposes an API for configuration such that whoever packages up Bitcoin can do all the heavy lifting of basically translating everything I just said, this whole like editing line by line of a configuration file, to use our API and software development kit to create a translation layer such that when a user uses Bitcoin on Embassy, all they experience is a nice little form with toggles and drop downs. And if they try to enter a value that's supposed to be a number, but they enter the word hello, EmbassyOS will say, hey, this needs to be a number between the value of 10 and 20, and you typed in the word hello. What are you doing? That is the power of this. And that's just one tiny example of the features that a software developer can take advantage of. But when we say packaging a service for EmbassyOS, we're basically talking about a very large set of metadata that wraps the service such that EmbassyOS can give the user control over the service in a very familiar way. They feel like they're using their MacBook or their iPhone and editing a settings menu. They don't realize that under the hood, they're actually performing extremely advanced systems administrator work. And that is because of the service wrappers. So, and it's a ton of creativity. Wrapping a service for EmbassyOS is not some droll, boring, mundane, okay, I'll type this command, then this command, and now Bitcoin's running on Embassy. It's that you actually have an incredible amount of creative opportunity to control the user experience. You, as the service packager, decides how the end user interacts with Bitcoin. So we could actually have 3 different Bitcoins on our marketplace, each one presenting a different user experience. One of them comes with a web GUI where you can view your node sync time and all this cool stuff. And a different one comes with powerful actions that allow you to run, commands with buttons instead of command line prompts. And so each one could be geared towards a different customer, but at the end of the day, they're all Bitcoin. That makes sense.
Yeah, super powerful and super technical and super high level and really awesome. I've been in that command line myself, and it's a lot of Google searching, a lot of posting. Okay, so elephant in the room here. I mean, everyone has discussed this. You and I've asked you before, but just once for the record, real quick, the difference between the competitors. I mean, it's not an either or. Maybe how do you speak to what someone like Umbrel is building versus yourself versus there's a couple of others, right? Noddle and well, I mean, what can you say about that?
Sure. So the essential differences are what you don't see. And that is only for the time being, because what you don't see now is going to be the most important thing later, which has to do with performance, reliability, scalability, security, okay? All the things that only matter when the wind starts to blow. Okay, when you're a tiny project in a tiny market running a few services, your architecture, your approach, your principles don't matter as much, right? What people see is your brand. They see the colors, they click the buttons, and if the buttons work, then they assume that all these things are created equal. But when the wind starts to blow, think even blockchain and cryptocurrency networks, things like Bitcoin versus things like not Bitcoin, okay? Some are designed to withstand the rain. Some are designed to scale to the masses, right? Bitcoin was designed as a relentless consensus machine that can't be stopped by all the king's men and all the king's horses. Where some of these other things, there's a person at the top of the pyramid who can flick a button and destroy the entire thing. Who cares, right? A lot of people are into those things until the person flips the button. So ultimately, the difference between Start9 and I don't want to go through every possible competitor, but the one that people ask about the most is Umbrel, is the essential architecture of the platform itself. Umbrel has, in short, taken a bunch of open source, self-hosted software services off the shelf, packaged them into a Docker Compose file, and you hit start. It is a completely, I will say, simple, I will dare say naive, bundled, fragile approach to the solution of an average person running self-hosted software services. And anyone who has run an Umbrel will tell you that as soon as anything goes wrong, it is SSH, command line, you put on your dev hat, you get under the woods, and you're back to being a car mechanic. The problem has not been solved. What they have solved is essentially the following. Let's say you have a very technical friend, somebody who knows how to self-host and install all these services, and you don't know how to. So they come over to your house and they're like, all right, I'm going to get you set up. And they pull open your computer and they're like, don't worry about what I'm doing. And they're just hacking and they install everything on your computer, right? And they're like, check it out. You got Bitcoin running, you got Lightning running, you got this running, you got this running. You know, if you want to use Bitcoin, just go plug the address in over here and you're good to go. And then they're like, and they leave. Great. You now have all these things running on your computer, but you have no way of managing them on a perpetual basis. You're sort of on your own now. So the value that that friend provided for you was to bootstrap you. They basically got you up and running and then walked out. And so now any issue that you have, you are calling them, you are getting on the command line. Again, you're putting your dev hat back on. And ultimately, that is not something that an average person is going to be able to use. Secondly, the more this person installed, the more things they're running on your computer, the more likely that these sort of obscure edge case or even performance-based issues are going to arise, right? So what has happened here is Umbrel has essentially become a marketing engine that has derived a single one-to-one ratio. The more services we announce, the more hype people get, the more devices we sell. But what's underlying all of that is at best a rickety house of twigs that is never going to scale to the masses because the system is not sophisticated enough. It is not robust enough to handle the kind of weight that they are piling onto it without building the necessary functionality under the hood to accommodate the user experience. So that's all I'm going to say about them. And that's probably the most I've ever said about them on any forum ever, because we tend not to focus on our competitors. But I will provide a quick contrast with us. From the get-go, we have designed this system with the end game in mind, not with the short game in mind. We are not a marketing engine, though we will get better at marketing in the very near future. That is a focus of ours because it needs to be there. It's an essential part of business. But we are a technology company. We're a product-focused company, and we are trying to invent a new product category that most people are highly unfamiliar with, which is the whole concept of running a personal server from your home and taking back your data and communications infrastructure from big tech. This is a new part of the brain. And if it's ever going to take and go mainstream, the experience has to be flawless. It has to be a plug it in, push a button, you're a sovereign individual now, and Google's out of your life. That has to be the experience. And we know that for that to be the experience at scale required an enormous amount of highly sophisticated technical engineering solving hard problems that nobody has ever solved before. And we just spent the last 2 years solving, not all, but many of those problems, while our competitors spent the last 2 years making their colors brighter and making lots of announcements.
Oh man, that was good. That was awesome. Really appreciate that. Okay, 2021 revenue and margins. Okay, now correct me what I have here, but EmbassyOS sales growth 130% year over year from 2020 to 2021. That's pretty impressive. And a 33% increase in the most recent quarter, right? I think my numbers are a little a quarter behind or so.
Yeah.
Which was previously the best to date.
Yeah.
So how are sales now, and how do you foresee them moving forward? And do you have a year total for 2021? I don't have that in front of me here.
I don't have it off the top of my head. I can give you some rough numbers.
Yeah.
So we are on pace right now to have our best month ever. So the
Nice.
month, March 2022, there's still a week left, but we're on pace right now to break our monthly records for both top line revenue and number of units sold. The latter is a little bit tighter. Like, we're definitely going to break the top line revenue, but the number of units sold is a little tighter. And that's because we've raised our prices. We're making bigger margins now than we were before. So, we've been able to increase our prices. We don't want to push people out of the market, but we also need to, we don't want to undervalue what we're selling. There's something to be said for charging a sufficient amount to make people realize that what you're selling is valuable. So we've gradually been bumping the prices. But anyway, so we're having a great month. We're having a very good quarter. January was slower than we had wanted prior to the comp January from the year before, which was our best month ever. Prior to, I think, August of 2021, which was our next best month ever. But January we were expecting to be really big, and it wasn't as big. And we chalked this up to pretty obvious explanation, actually, which is that we were absent from the holiday season in a pretty meaningful way, working on EmbassyOS 0.3.0. So the entire team was, heads down in a dark room, coding, trying to push this major groundbreaking product out the door that we've been working on for a year. And that was about 4 months late by almost any standard. We were way behind schedule. So most of our focus was on delivering the promise that we had made and building the next generation operating system that we had promised. And so, we weren't overly focused on marketing and pushing sales, and that's fine because we're playing the long game. So we didn't have the best January ever, but I still think we're on pace to have our best month ever, and probably a quarter in line with Q4 of last year. So we expect Q1 and Q4 to be similar, and that was our best quarter ever. So we're not going down. We're staying about the same quarter over quarter for one quarter.
Okay. So one thing that I love about your business is it's so incredibly capital efficient, right? Especially out the gate from the get-go. And it should be motivation to every other founder and builder and someone out there who right off the bat, they get an idea and all of a sudden they think it's worth a ton of money and then they need to raise a bunch of money. And I just want to say that for the record, Start9 is probably the most capital efficient team and has done more with less than probably any company that I've ever seen. I mean, I think that you had legal incorporation, got a live product, and I think it was maybe $80,000 or so spent. I'm trying to remember these numbers. I'm looking for that exact figure. But as far as right now, I don't know. I think maybe the team's around 11. I was going to ask about the team, the current burn, right? And how does that look now as far as how capital efficient and what you were able to do with so very little from the get-go? What's the current burn like? And then the use of funds from this fundraise. What are you planning on investing in?
Yeah, great, and thank you. We did a lot with a little. We know that very intimately because I was part of the team that was getting a little. I mean, the founders and I were all, experienced engineers. Arguably, the McClellan brothers are some of the best engineers in the world. I make that statement pretty confidently. I'm not a hack myself, and we didn't need to go out and search for the thing that most people search for. Right? You're a businessman. You got an idea. You pitch the idea, you raise some money, and then you go out and you hire a CMO and a CTO and a COO, and then you go look. And at the end of the day, when all the money is spent and everything, you go try to find a developer to build the damn thing for you. Right? We went the complete opposite approach, which is that we just got dirty and built it. We went to market in 5 months for $0 because we didn't pay ourselves a dime. The founders self-funded the company. We then iterated and put a V2 product out the door with a single hire after that. I have held this company together from a branding and marketing standpoint with my fingertips. It's not my primary, value add to the world. It's not what I'm best at. But you know what? Despite that, we've managed to build a hell of a brand. We are widely loved and have a passionate community. Might not be the biggest community you've ever seen, but the people who are in our community are in it for the long run, and they mean it. They know what we're doing, and they know how important it is. And so I'm very proud of the brand we've been able to build with no marketing budget whatsoever or no marketing person whatsoever. But largely, we're a team of technologists and product engineers. And so we move fast, we build fast, and it works at the end of the day. And that's ultimately what is going to make us a trustworthy brand that people move to in the future. So we are very capital efficient. We did a raise in 2021. We closed out a smaller sort of pre-seed round where we were, selling simple agreements for future equity. We still have most of that money. We are not sort of scraping by and starving right now. We spend very, very little. We are making our own money. I mean, this month we're going to have sales of, about $80,000 this month. So we're bringing in top line revenue. We're doing it at an 80% material margin. So we do have a gross profit. And then our operating expenses are mostly payroll. We don't have a lot of overhead, right? We live lean and mean, and we hire great people to do their job, and everyone is underpaid. Absolutely everyone is underpaid. And that is not because of some company principle where we don't like paying people. And it's also not because we haven't raised money and the second we do, everyone's going to be overpaid. It's that I think there's something to be said for the hunger, right? I think that you don't want to overpay people and you don't want to underpay people. You want to pay people exactly what they can bear. Exactly. Because that's what keeps everyone hungry. And I hold that myself to that same standard too. And it makes sure that the people who are in your company are there because they want to be there, because they love the team, they love the product, they love the vision, and you're paying them enough so that they're not starving, and you're not paying them so much that they can, go buy a yacht. So we think we've struck a good balance. So the funds from this round will be used in a very similar manner, right? So we have capital requirements for hardware. So we will be in short order placing a very large purchase order for our next generation hardware device, which we have not talked about and has not yet been announced, but is going to make people's jaws drop, especially the partnership that we have arranged. This is not just us building hardware. This is us creating probably the most valuable partnership we could possibly have dreamed of at this stage of our company, with a company that does do hardware. And that will be announced shortly, but that's capital intensive, right? We are placing a bet on our future. We are hiring. We're hiring for the places that we need it most, right? So the 2 job descriptions, the 2 job openings that we have posted as of today, it's not the only 2 things we're hiring for, but they are the 2 that we're actively, aggressively pursuing, is another community and technical support engineer, so somebody who can, help customers learn the ropes, solve problems one-on-one, help in group settings, contribute to the docs. And the other role that we're looking for is our social media and content marketing lead. So, our version of a meme lord, the person who's going to really represent the company on social media and manage our content pipelines to make sure that Start9 is always part of the conversation. Wherever the conversation is happening, if it's about trusted third parties and self-hosting and Bitcoin, and we are going to be there. We're going to be a household name. We're going to be everywhere, and we're going to be there with quality and in force. So those are the two roles we're looking for right now. We actually feel very confident on the product and engineering side of the company. Very confident. We have the team that we need to bring a mass market product, multiple of them, to the world. Now, we will hire more engineers over time, but it's more of a passive process because the core of the team is so strong in that sense.
Wow. Okay. You stole my thunder because I wanted to touch on all three of those things, but that's good. I think we're getting towards the end here. I'll just recap. I was going to ask you, late last year, the rumor mill was the next generation of Embassy hardware, right? And moving on to something else. So you mentioned that. And previously in the past, there was all sorts of talk about other, IoT devices and things. I don't know if that's something you don't even want to mention right now or not, but, all these kind of home electronics that we may use and other sorts of uses. I was just going to ask if you wanted to say anything about that.
Yeah, so I'll touch on both. I think the latter, the home IoT angle is important. It's not something that we do on a daily basis right now, but it is where this goes, right? And anyone who's considering getting involved with this company on an investment front especially needs to understand what the long-term vision is. And that is pretty central to our long-term vision. So I think it's worth mentioning. From the next generation hardware perspective, we will be announcing at Bitcoin 2022 in 2 weeks the next iteration of the Embassy. It will be called the Embassy2. The Embassy1 is not going away. We will always have this entry-level product where people can, either build it themselves or buy it pre-built from us. But it's a kit, right? It's more of like a Raspberry Pi with an SSD. They plug in and they run. And it's our current product offering that people could also build themselves. The Embassy2 is a whole different animal. It's an all-in-one device. It will absolutely blow away any other comparable device of any competitor you just mentioned out of the water. I mean, it's night and day. This is a real machine. It is not a couple commodity hardware components that plug together and are sufficient for an individual running a few services. It is a powerful computer that is capable of running almost any number of services that you could want to crank it up to, depending on how resource intensive they are. It's beautiful. It's all inclusive. There's no wires. You plug it in. It just works. And like I said, it is backed by, I will not drop the beans yet, but one of the most respected hardware and operating system manufacturers in the world, who will also be, by the way, partnering with us to essentially become the hardware branch of Start9. They will be handling order, assembly, fulfillment, distribution, returns, warranties, everything. So we are engaging in a joint venture with one of the best hardware companies in the world, and really looking forward to unveiling that at Bitcoin 2022. It is going to blow people away, and we will be opening up for pre-sales at that conference as well, taking deposits for deliveries that will ship out in about 3 months following the conference. So that's it on that front. Now, where does it all go? Okay, I will not do the long version of this. I'll do the short version, which is that once you have established a sovereign presence in the home, right? Once you are running a personal server in your home, and that personal server, by the way, is doubling as your router, which is a device that will be coming in 2023, right? Not this year, but next year. We will be launching the Embassy Home, which is an embassy, an extremely powerful Embassy2, but also with router functionality, such that instead of adding a new device to your home, we will actually be replacing a device that was already in your home, which is way more powerful. It lowers the barrier to entry dramatically because people don't have to create new brain space for this thing, right? It's a router that does a whole lot more. It's not just a privacy router. It's a privacy router that acts as your own personal cloud. It's a lot easier to sell to a person who's less familiar with this space because you're piggybacking off of a prior concept. Secondly, by being a router, we now are literally the gateway to the internet and the manager of the local area network of your home. And once we are your gateway to the internet and the manager of your home, the wonderful things we can do together with that connection. Imagine security cameras, doorbells, thermostats, refrigerators, you name it. We're not going to make refrigerators. What I'm saying is that as more and more devices get smart, which in the future you can imagine every device being smart. And if you can't, then you need to watch more science fiction movies. It's going to happen. Your t-shirt is going to be smart. Your pen is going to be smart. Everything is going to be connected to the internet. And when I say connected to the internet, what I mean is networked. These things will be networked in cyberspace. The question is who controls that network? Is your home security camera, thermostat, and door locks plugged into the Google mothership, where an employee or somebody more powerful than Google comes in with a warrant and simply says, lock their doors or turn up their heat or, let's see what they're doing and just take a peek at their security camera or listen through Alexa, right? This is already happening, by the way. This is not some crazy statement I just made. It's already happening. Or are all of these smart devices going to be networked together on a private network that you and you alone, and maybe your family members through permissions, control, right? The smart home is coming, and there's two versions of the smart home. The smart home that is run and ruled by the corporate elite, Google, or the smart home that is run by you and you alone. We are, at present, this is a bold statement and a very true statement, Start9 is, at present, the #1 candidate in the world for creating the latter smart home. And I don't mean every device. Again, we are not going to be manufacturing refrigerators, but our software, our product offering with the embassy at the center, this brain of your home, is the best path, the most viable path forward for the sovereign home in the future. And that's where we're going. We expect to integrate with all sorts of different IoT devices, beginning with a security camera. So the security camera will be our first IoT home hardware integration. When it launches, not in 2022, you will be able to put a commodity camera bought from the store. You go down to your Micro Center or Best Buy and you buy a security camera, you put it into your home, and within a minute or two, that camera will be recording live video footage, syncing it to your embassy, which is also in your home, such that you can go to the other side of the world and watch live video footage from your home without the involvement of a single trusted third party, for free, for life. All you had to do was buy the embassy, buy the camera, click a few buttons, and it's free for life, recorded video of your own home from anywhere in the world without trusting anyone else. We think that's a very powerful vision that more and more people are going to get on board with.
Wow. That was a lot. Okay. So Embassy2, stay tuned, coming soon, major announcement, super exciting, right? Super powerful, unlike anything else that exists. Embassy Home in the future.
Next year.
And that was great about the IoT devices and you're being so well positioned. It's exciting to hear it from you. It's exciting to hear it. I think that's pretty good. I think that's pretty much everything. One other quick question though, as far as policing the App Store. Yeah. So let's say that somebody wanted to submit something and maybe it was lousy with shit coins or God knows what. I mean, let's just say that, there's certain things that are illegal, right? How you advertise drugs or things like that. How do you foresee handling those things if they ever happen in the future?
One of my favorite businesses in the whole world is, it actually might be my favorite business, is Costco. Do you like
everyone
Costco?
Everyone loves Costco, man. It's dangerous.
You know why everyone loves Costco? I do. I don't know if everyone knows why. It's because Costco's business model is to go out and shop every possible pillow on the market, right? They probably have 6 people sleeping on different pillows every night. They're testing every pillow, okay? so that they can find the best pillow and offer it in bulk to you. Like we have done the hard work for you. We have found the best pillow. Here it is. Use it. You're going to have a great time. You're going to love it. Right. So Costco does not make you, does not burden you with the task of choosing between competing products. You don't go to Costco and get 6 different options for soap. They're like, nope, this is the soap you want. We have done the hard work to find the soap that you want. And then you buy the soap and you're like, wow, you're right. That was an amazing soap. And then you fall in love with Costco. You start to trust them. That's how trust is built, right? So we're going to do the exact same thing. Our service marketplace, the Start9 marketplace, is going to be the most exclusive, gated, vetted. We are going to grind anything that even dares to try to get into that marketplace, and we will gate the hell out of it. My prediction is that at scale, there will only be between 20 and 30 services on the Start9 marketplace at scale, ever. Right? Because we're not going to get a messaging app that's awesome and another messaging app that's awesome and put them both on the store. Maybe in rare circumstances we'll do something like that. But by and large, we're going to find the best thing and put it on the store, and you're going to love it. Now, let's say you want something else. Here's where we and Costco differ. That if you go to Costco and you say, I don't like that pillow, I would like to try some other pillow, you got to go to a different store. The Costco doesn't accommodate that. They're like, well, that's not one that we sell. That's not part of our model. At ours, we have a ecosystem of marketplaces. So switching from one marketplace to another, imagine going to Costco and saying, hey, nice pillow, but I want something else. And then having the store associate say, come with me. And they show you the back room. And every pillow you have ever imagined is in the back room there. But there's a big warning sign on the back door that says, okay, you are leaving the Costco safe zone. If you go over here, we cannot guarantee that these things will work. We can't guarantee that they're not malware. You better make sure you trust the person who packaged it. You better make sure you know what you're doing. And by the way, we're not going to provide extensive support for these things either. If you need help with these things, go to their forums, go to their stuff. So we are going to provide the cleanest, most functional, beautiful, happy path experience for all those people out there who don't want to deal with issues, who don't want to deal with configurations or networking problems. And they're just like, I just want it to work. I want to push a button and I want it to work. That will be what you find on our marketplace. Everything else goes on to the community marketplace, right? And the community marketplace will be full of all sorts of stuff. It'll be full of shitcoin services. It'll be full of it'll be full of note-taking apps that don't even work. And here's the thing, we are not going to put effort into that, right? Start9 as a team with our own resources are not going to go out and package up some shitcoin or another and throw it onto our marketplace. However, if that team wants to package their own thing and host it and use the embassy as a distribution platform, I consider it the right of every individual on earth to run whatever the fuck they want on their own computer. I would never presume to tell somebody that just because I don't like something doesn't mean that you're not allowed to run it. What am I, the new Apple, the new authoritarian? No, you run whatever you want on your own computer. We are the distribution platform. In fact, I'll spill some beans here. I have already been contacted by multiple leaders of various cryptocurrency and blockchain communities who want to proliferate full nodes on their network. They're like, hey, part of the reason that Bitcoin is better than us is because Bitcoin has thousands of nodes running in the wild. It's totally decentralized, whereas our network only has like 4 people running a node and it's totally centralized. So if we want to be more decentralized like Bitcoin, we've got to have people running nodes. Well, the problem is nobody knows how to run our node because it's super complicated and it requires command line experience and yada, yada. And they say, can we offer our node as a one-click install on Embassy such that all of our community members can buy embassies? And I'm like, of course you can. I'm not going to package it because I don't say this to their face because I don't like your software. I don't want to run it. I don't think anyone should run it. But you absolutely can package it up, put it on the community marketplace, and anyone from your community can now buy an embassy, go to that back door that I mentioned where the sign says you're leaving the Start9 safe zone, open that door, download your software, and be running your node in no time. It's actually a wonderful place to be in for Start9 because we get the benefit of being like everyone's friend. Like Start9 is just a platform. We are truly, truly a mass market distribution platform for open source software for anyone and everyone. And anytime some community leader comes in and packages their software for our platform, guess what? All of their community buys our product. So we don't just acquire a customer, we acquire communities at large. We engulf entire communities into our own. Whereas our community doesn't mention these things. We don't talk about the specifics. We just say sovereign computing. We are the platform, the computing platform of the future. And everyone can get on board with that. And it allows us to be very principled about our own marketplace, right? To be listed on the Start9 marketplace, you have to pass 3 criteria. 1, your software has to be ideologically aligned with our own ideology, right? Start9 will never put malware on our marketplace. We will never put some scamware Ponzi scheme crap on our marketplace. We will never do that. You have to be ideologically aligned. Number 2 is it has to work really well. Like we are going to grind on your software. We're going to push it to the limit and make sure that it doesn't crash, that it works as advertised, et cetera, et cetera. Number 3 is that the user experience is optimal, right? Like I don't care if your thing is ideologically aligned and is great software. If mom can't use it, it's not going onto our marketplace, because all that's going to result in is moms calling our support line saying, how do I use this shit? I can't use it. So if you are building something that we determine is good according to our own subjective criteria as a company, if you are building something that works really well, is well architected, and you're building something that is easy to use, and you are best in class, then there is a chance that you'll get into our marketplace. If not, you're on the community marketplace, and it's just a couple buttons for somebody to get there and download it anyway.
Awesome. Wow. Okay. I think that's it. That was really, really awesome. I think this may be my favorite interview we've done in the short amount of deals. That was really good. And I've seen all your interviews. I've been to at least 1 or 2 of the live demos. Still waiting on the video from Unconfiscatable, but
yeah, we need that.
Yeah, it's coming.
That was a good demo. That went really well. I can't wait to put that out.
Okay. So in closing, we, Lightning Ventures, invested previously through our Node 1 fund in the past. We're investing again in this round. They have secured a lead that we don't need to talk about, but it's in our deal memo if you're in the syndicate or if you pull up what we wrote there. And big announcement coming in the next few weeks. And we are very excited. And thanks, Matt, for spending some time and hanging out.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate your support as always.